Jake Morrison checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The cargo bay of his ship was almost empty now. The last of the human families had boarded the transport vessels, carrying only what they could fit in small bags. Everything else they left behind. "Captain, we're ready for departure," said Lisa Carter, his chief engineer. She had been working on Kepler Station for 15 years. Now she was leaving it all behind. Jake nodded and walked to the bridge. Through the large windows, he could see the massive space station that had been humanity's home for 200 years. Kepler Station was huge, with spinning sections that created artificial gravity and docking bays that could hold 1,000 ships. Humans had built most of it with their own hands. The station was still busy. Alien ships came and went like always. The Valkyrians, with their blue skin and tall bodies, moved cargo around the docks. The small, quick Drakmari scurried between the shops and offices. The rock-like crystalline beings stood guard at important checkpoints. None of them seemed to notice that something was different today. None of them saw that every human was leaving. Jake sat in his captain's chair and opened the communication channel to the other human ships. There were 57 vessels in total, from small family transports to large cargo haulers. Every human in this part of space was aboard one of these ships. "This is Morrison," he said into his microphone. "Is everyone ready?" One by one, the other ship captains responded, "Ready? All set here. Good to go." Jake looked at Lisa, who was standing beside him. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. Lisa's face was serious. "Jake, I've been the head engineer here for 15 years. I fixed their machines, designed their systems, and solved their problems. Last month, they promoted a Valkyrian to be the new chief of engineering for the whole sector. He's been here for 2 years and doesn't know half of what I know." Jake remembered his own frustrations. He had applied to be a trade representative 3 times. Each time they gave the job to someone else. The last time, they chose a Drakmari who had never even been to the outer worlds. "It's not just about the jobs," said Ben Rodriguez, the station's former diplomatic officer over the com. "It's about respect. We've been here for 2 centuries. We've helped them build their civilization. We've stopped their wars and fixed their problems. But they still treat us like we're not important." Jake knew Ben was right. Humans had always been the ones who got things done. When the Zephyrians and Arcturans were fighting over trade routes, humans found solutions. When the mining equipment broke down, humans fixed it. When different species couldn't understand each other, humans translated and negotiated, but humans were never the ones in charge. They were never the ones making the big decisions. They were just the ones who made everything work. "All ships begin departure sequence," Jake announced. The first ship to leave was the Star Runner, carrying 300 humans from the residential section. Captain Amy Foster had lived on Kepler Station her whole life. She was born there, went to school there, and worked there. Now she was leaving, and she wasn't sure if she would ever come back. The second ship was the Harmony, loaded with families from the commercial district. These were the people who ran the shops, restaurants, and service centers that kept the station running. Without them, the aliens would have to learn to cook their own food and fix their own equipment. One by one, the ships lifted off and headed for the jump point. Jake's ship, the New Horizon, was the last to leave. As they moved away from the station, Lisa stood at the window and watched it get smaller. "Look at them," she said. "They're just going about their business like nothing's happening." Jake looked too. The alien ships were still moving in and out of the docking bays. The lights in the station were still on. The communication channels was still busy with normal traffic. No one seemed to realize that 5,000 humans had just disappeared. "They'll figure it out soon enough," Jake said. The truth was, humans had been planning this for months. It started with small meetings in private homes. Engineers, doctors, teachers, and diplomats would gather to talk about their frustrations. They were tired of being ignored. They were tired of being treated as less important than the other species. Dr. Rachel Green, the station's chief medical officer, had been the first to suggest the idea. What if we just left? She had asked during one of these meetings. What? If we showed them what life is like without us? At first, people thought she was joking. But as they talked more, they realized she was serious. And the more they thought about it, the more sense it made. Humans had always been the problem solvers. When the crystalline beings got sick with a strange disease, human doctors found the cure. When the Valkyrian ships had engine problems, human engineers fixed them. When trade disputes got complicated, human negotiators sorted them out. But humans were never given credit for their work. They were never promoted to the top positions. They were never invited to the important meetings where decisions were made, so they decided to leave. Not with anger or violence, but quietly. They would take their skills and knowledge and go somewhere else. They would show the Federation what it was like to live without human help. The planning had taken months. Secret messages were sent to every human settlement in Federation space. The message was simple: pack your things and be ready to leave. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't make any announcements. Just go, and that's exactly what they did, as the new horizon reached the jump point. Jake took one last look at Kepler Station. Tomorrow, the aliens would wake up to find that their elevators weren't working because no one knew how to fix them. Their computers would crash because no one understood the maintenance routines. Their food would taste terrible because no one knew the recipes. Jump coordinates are set, Lisa announced. Ready when you are, Captain. Jake smiled. Take us home, Lisa. Take us to our new home. The ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind 200 years of human history. But they weren't running away. They were moving toward something better. Something where humans would be treated as equals, not as servants. The Great Departure had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Zexthara woke up to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the command center. The tall Valkyrian rushed to his control station, his blue skin pale with worry. Red warning lights flashed on every screen. What's happening? He demanded. As he entered the main operations room, Lieutenant Kress, a young Drakmari with dark fur, looked up from her console. Sir, we're getting emergency reports from all over the sector. Something's wrong with the stations. Zexthara frowned. What? Kind of problems? Everything, sir. The power systems are failing. The water recyclers have stopped working. The food processing units are broken. And sir, the humans are gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? Kress's small hands moved quickly over her controls. I mean, they're not there anymore. Every human in the sector has disappeared. Their quarters are empty. Their workstations are abandoned. They've all just vanished. Zexthara felt a cold fear in his stomach. That's impossible. There were thousands of humans in this sector. They can't all just disappear, but the reports kept coming in. Kepler Station was in chaos. The main elevator system had broken down because no one knew how to fix it. The computer network was crashing because the maintenance routines weren't being run. The restaurants were closed because no one knew how to cook human food, and the aliens who ate there didn't know how to cook their own. On Mining Station Beta 7, the situation was even worse. The automated mining equipment had stopped working completely. The crystalline beings who ran the station tried to restart it, but they couldn't understand the human-designed control systems. Without the mining operation, 3 entire star systems would run out of fuel within a month. Get me Counselor Vorth, Zexthara ordered. We need to call an emergency session. Within hours, the Federation Council was meeting an emergency session. Representatives from 12 different species filled the Great Hall, all talking at once. The noise was incredible. Counselor Vorth, a fat Valkyrian with 3 eyes, stood at the center podium. His voice boomed over the crowd. Order! We must have order! When the room finally became quiet, Vorth continued. We are facing a crisis unlike anything in our history. The humans have left Federation space, all of them at the same time. Drakmari Counselor jumped up. This must be some kind of rebellion. We should send the fleet to bring them back. Bring them back from where? Asked a crystalline representative, his rock-like voice echoing in the hall. We don't know where they went. They just vanished. Chief Intelligence Officer Nissa Curl, one of the few Drakmari who had worked closely with humans, stood slowly. The room became quiet when she spoke. I worked with humans for 20 years. I know how they think. This isn't a rebellion. It's something else. What do you mean? Vorth asked. I mean, they planned this. They didn't leave in anger. They left. Because they were tired of being ignored. The room exploded in noise again. Several counselors shouted at once. Ignored? We gave them jobs, we gave them homes, we treated them well. Nissa waited for the noise to die down. Did we? When was the last time a human was promoted to run a major station? When was the last time we asked for their opinion on important decisions? When was the last time we listened to their ideas? The room became uncomfortable quiet. Everyone knew the answer. Humans had been workers, not leaders. They had been useful, but not important. They were good workers, said a Zephyrian counselor. They did their jobs well? Yes, Nissa agreed. They did everyone's jobs well. When your ships broke down, humans fixed them. When your people got sick, humans healed them. When you had disputes, humans solved them. But did you ever thank them? Did you ever make them partners instead of servants? The truth was painful, but it was clear. For 200 years, humans had been the ones who made everything work. They had been the engineers, the doctors, the diplomats, and the problem solvers. But they had never been the decision makers. Now they were gone, and everything was falling apart. Over the next few days, the situation got worse. The Zephyrians and Arcturans, two species that had been enemies for centuries, started fighting again. For 50 years, human diplomats had kept the peace between them. Now, without human mediators, old grudges came back to life. The first battle happened near the Vega system. 3 Zephyrian ships attacked an Arcturan trading vessel over a dispute about shipping routes. The Arcturans responded by attacking a Zephyrian mining station. Within days, both sides were mobilizing their fleets. This is insane, Zexthara said as he watched the reports. How did the humans keep the peace for so long? They understood both sides, Nissa explained. They could see the real problems behind the arguments. They knew how to find solutions that made everyone happy, but it wasn't just the fighting. The economic problems were getting worse every day. The mining operations that provided 40% of the Federation's raw materials were shutting down one by one. The humans had designed the safety systems, and without them, the mines were too dangerous to operate. The Helix Nebula mining platform was the worst disaster. The automated systems failed, and the entire platform exploded. 50 workers died, and the Federation lost one of its most important sources of rare metals. We need to find them, Vorth announced at the next council session. We need to bring them back. What if they don't want to come back? Asked the crystalline counselor. Then we'll make them want to come back, Vorth replied. We'll offer them better jobs, better homes, better treatment. But deep down, everyone knew it wasn't that simple. The humans hadn't left because they wanted better jobs. They had left because they wanted respect. They wanted to be treated as equals, not as useful servants. Send envoys to every human world, Zexthara ordered. Find out what they want. Find out what it will take to bring them back. But as the reports kept coming in, it became clear that this was bigger than anyone had imagined. The humans hadn't just left. They had disappeared completely, and without them, the Federation was falling apart. The great realization had begun. The Federation was learning what life was like without the humans they had taken for granted. Ambassador Telenara had been searching for 3 months. Her ship, the Galactic Unity, had visited 47 different star systems looking for the missing humans. Every lead had been a dead end. Every rumor had been false. The Valkyrian diplomat was tired and frustrated. Her blue skin looked pale, and her usually perfect uniform was wrinkled. She sat in her quarters, staring at a star map that showed all the places she had searched. Ambassador, her assistant, a young Drakmari named Kex, knocked on her door. We're getting a signal from the outer rim. It might be them. Telenara jumped up. Show me. The signal was coming from a star system that wasn't even on most Federation maps. It was far beyond the normal trade routes in a region that most species considered empty space. Set course immediately, Telenara ordered. When they arrived at the system, Telenara couldn't believe what she saw. There were cities floating in space, connected by bridges of light. Ships moved between them like schools of fish. And on the planets below, she could see the green glow of terraforming machines working at incredible speed. "Those are human ships," Kex whispered, looking at the scanner readings. "But the technology is far beyond anything we've seen." Telenara's heart raced. "Request permission to dock." "Tell them we're here to negotiate." The response came quickly. "Ambassador Telenara, you are welcome to dock at Station Alpha. Commander Riley Brooks will meet with you." Riley Brooks was waiting for them at the docking bay. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. Telenara recognized her from the files. Brooks had been the head of the Federation Science Division for 10 years before the humans left. "Welcome to New Geneva," Brooks said with a smile. "I hope your journey wasn't too difficult." Telenara looked around the docking bay. Everything was clean and new. The walls seemed to glow with their own light. The air smelled fresh and clean. "How is this possible?" she asked. "The humans left Federation space only 3 months ago." Brooks laughed. "We didn't build this in 3 months. We've been working on it for decades. We just never told the Federation about it." She led Telenara through the station. Everywhere they went, Telenara saw amazing things. Plants grew in walls that cleaned the air. Water flowed upward in streams that defied gravity. Machines worked without any visible power source. "Your people have been busy," Telenara said, trying to hide her amazement. "We've always been busy," Brooks replied. "The difference is that now we're working for ourselves instead of for others." They entered a conference room with windows that looked out over the planet below. Telenara gasped. The planet was covered in green forests and blue oceans. 3 months ago, according to her records, it had been a dead rock. "That's impossible," Telenara said. "Terraforming takes centuries." "Federation terraforming takes centuries," Brooks corrected. "We developed a better way. We've been testing it for 50 years, but we never shared it with the Federation." Telenara felt weak. She sat down heavily in a chair. "Why didn't you share it?" Brooks sat across from her. "When did the Federation ever ask us to share our ideas? When did you ever ask us what we thought about anything important?" The question hung in the air. Telenara knew the answer. The Federation had never asked humans for their opinions. They had given humans jobs and expected them to do what they were told. "We want to discuss your return," Telenara said carefully. "We're not returning," Brooks said simply. "We're happy where we are. But the Federation is falling apart without you. The mining operations have failed. The peace agreements are breaking down. People are dying." Brooks nodded sadly. "I know, we've been watching. It's not what we wanted, but it's what was necessary." "What do you mean?" "We tried to help for 200 years. We fixed your problems, solved your conflicts, and built your machines. But you never listened to us. You never treated us as equals. You treated us as useful tools." Telenara felt ashamed. She knew Brooks was right. "What would it take for you to help us again?" "We're willing to help," Brooks said, "but not as servants. As partners." She activated a holographic display that showed the human territories. Telenara's eyes widened. There were hundreds of star systems, all connected by a network of advanced technology. "We have faster-than-light communication," Brooks explained. "We can talk to anyone in our territory instantly. We have energy sources that can power entire planets. We have medical technology that can cure diseases you've never heard of. And you developed all of this without the Federation knowing?" "We tried to share our ideas with the Federation many times. We wrote reports, gave presentations, and made proposals. But they were always rejected. The Federation preferred to use technologies they understood, even if they were inferior." Telenara remembered the reports. She had seen them in the archives. Hundreds of human proposals for new technologies, all marked as not approved or under review. "We weren't trying to hide anything," Brooks continued. "We were trying to contribute." But when the Federation wouldn't listen, we decided to develop our ideas on our own. What are your terms? Telenara asked. Brooks smiled. It's simple. We want to be treated as equals. We want representation in the Federation Council. We want our ideas to be heard and considered. We want to be partners, not servants. And if the Federation agrees, then we'll help fix the problems. We'll share our technology. We'll return to the negotiating table and help make peace between the Zephyrians and Arcturans. We'll restart the mining operations with better safety systems. Telenara felt hope for the first time in months. And if the Federation doesn't agree? Brooks's expression became serious. Then we'll continue as we are. We'll build our own civilization. We'll trade with species that want to treat us as equals. The Federation will have to learn to survive. Without us, the meeting continued for hours. Brooks showed Telenara more of the human technologies. She saw medical devices that could regrow lost limbs. She saw farming techniques that could feed billions. She saw ships that could travel between stars in minutes instead of days. All of it had been developed by humans working in secret, using their free time and their own resources. They had been building a better future while the Federation had been taking them for granted. I need to report back to the Council, Telenara said finally. Of course, Brooks agreed. But remember, Ambassador, we're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for equal treatment. We want to be partners in building a better galaxy. As Telenara's ship left the human territory, she looked back at the glowing cities and green planets. She realized that the Federation had lost more than just workers. They had lost their best hope for the future. The humans had moved on without them. Now the question was whether the Federation was ready to change. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and the Federation was dying. Admiral Zextara stood in his command center, watching the latest reports come in. Every screen showed red warnings. Every message brought more bad news. Sir, Lieutenant, Cress said, her voice shaking. The Zephyrian fleet has attacked the Arcturan colony on Vega Prime. They're saying it's revenge for the trade station bombing. Zextara closed his eyes. The war between the Zephyrians and Arcturans had been getting worse every day. Both sides were angry, and neither would listen to Federation peacekeepers. They only used to listen to human diplomats. How many dead? He asked. 3,000 civilians, sir. The Arcturans are mobilizing their entire fleet in response. On another screen, Zextara could see the reports from the mining stations. 17 major facilities had shut down completely. The automated systems were too dangerous to operate without human supervision. 3 more stations had exploded. In the past month, killing hundreds of workers. Sir, another officer called out. We're getting an emergency signal from the crystalline homeworld. They're saying their people are dying. Zextara felt his heart sink. The crystalline beings were made of living rock, and they had been slowly dying from a strange disease for years. But the death rate had been very low because human doctors had been treating them with a special medicine. How many are sick? He asked. Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. They're asking for the human treatment, but we don't have it. The humans never shared the formula. The truth was that the Federation had never asked for the formula. They had been happy to let human doctors handle the problem quietly. Now those doctors were gone and the crystalline people were dying. Zextara walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of Federation space with red dots marking all the problems. There were red dots everywhere. The food situation was getting bad too. Humans had run most of the agricultural stations. They knew how to grow food for dozens of different species, each with their own special needs. Now the food was running out, and many species were starting to go hungry. Sir, Cress said quietly. Councillor Vorth wants to speak with you? Zextara nodded. He walked to his private office and activated the communication screen. Vorth's fat face appeared, looking older and more tired than ever. Admiral, Vorth said, what's the latest situation? Bad and getting worse, Zextara replied. The Zephyrian Arcturan war is spreading. We've lost 40% of our mining capacity. The crystalline people are dying, and we still have no idea how to fix any of it. Vorth was quiet for a long moment. What about the human territories? Any word from our ambassador? Telenara is still negotiating, but the humans are demanding full equality. They want representation in the council, equal voting rights, and shared decision-making authority. That's impossible, Vorth said quickly. The other species would never agree to that. The other species are dying, Zexthara pointed out. Maybe it's time to consider what the humans want. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Kevin Walsh was working in his laboratory on New Geneva. He had been the Federation's top scientist for 20 years. Now he was working on problems that the Federation couldn't even imagine. His current project was helping the Rillan people, a small species that lived near the edge of Federation space. The Rillans had been ignored by the Federation for decades, but they had contacted the humans directly. Dr. Walsh, his assistant Maria Santos, entered the lab. We're getting reports from the Federation territory. The situation is getting worse. Kevin looked up from his work. What kind of reports? Crystalline people are dying without our medicine. The agricultural stations are failing. The mining disasters are getting worse every day. Kevin felt sad. He had friends in Federation space, good people who were suffering because of their government's mistakes. What about the peace negotiations? The Zephyr-Arturan war is spreading. Both sides are too angry to listen to Federation mediators. They're only getting more violent. Kevin remembered the years he had spent working with both species. The Zephyrians were proud and quick to anger, but they were also honorable. The Arturans were careful and suspicious, but they were also fair. With the right approach, they could work together. But the Federation peacekeepers didn't understand either species well enough to help them. Dr. Walsh, Maria continued, President Davis wants to address the Federation Council. She's asking if you want to participate. Kevin thought about it. President Helen Davis was the elected leader of the human territories. She had been a Federation senator before the Exodus, and she understood both sides of the conflict. Yes, he said finally. I'll participate. These people need help, even if their government doesn't deserve it. Meanwhile, in Federation space, the problems were getting worse. The elevator systems on major stations were breaking down because no one knew how to maintain them. The computer networks were crashing because the maintenance routines weren't being run properly. Even simple things like waste disposal were becoming major problems. On Kepler Station, the alien residents were learning to live without the conveniences that humans had provided. The restaurants were closed because no one knew how to cook. The shops were empty because no one knew how to run the supply chains. The schools were struggling because human teachers had been the ones who knew how to work with children from different species. It's like we've gone back 100 years, said Nissa Curl, the Drakmari intelligence officer. She was one of the few aliens who understood what the Federation had lost. It's worse than that, replied Dr. Thane, a crystalline medical officer. 100 years ago, we at least knew how to take care of ourselves. Now we've forgotten how to live without human help. The economic impact was spreading beyond Federation space. Other species that traded with the Federation were starting to worry. The hegemony, a powerful alliance of species that had been neutral in Federation politics, was watching the situation carefully. The Federation is collapsing, said Hegemony Admiral Kess during a private meeting. Maybe it's time to consider new alliances. Several species were already reaching out to the human territories. The Tillans, the Rillans, and even some rebel groups within Federation space were asking for human help. The humans were responding positively, offering aid and trade agreements. President Davis was scheduled to address the Federation Council in 1 week. The terms she would offer were simple but revolutionary: full equality for humans, shared governance, and mutual respect. The alternative was continued independence, with humanity potentially forming new alliances with Federation enemies. As the crisis deepened, it became clear that the Federation faced a choice. They could accept humans as equals and begin to rebuild, or they could continue to struggle alone while their civilization fell apart. The consequences of taking humanity for granted were becoming impossible to ignore. The question was whether the Federation would learn from their mistakes before it was too late. President Helen Davis stood at the podium in the Federation Council chamber. She had been here many times before, but always as a junior representative, always sitting in the back rows where humans were allowed. Now she stood at the center, addressing the most powerful beings in the galaxy as an equal. The Great Hall was packed. Representatives from dozens of species filled every seat. The Valkyrian councilors sat in their traditional blue robes. The small Drakmari clustered together in the upper galleries. The massive crystalline beings stood like living statues along the walls. Everyone was watching her. Admiral Jake Morrison stood beside her, wearing his dress uniform. 6 months ago, he had been just another Federation cargo captain. Now he was the military representative of humanity's independent territories. Honored representatives, Helen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I stand before you not as a petitioner, but as the leader of a sovereign people. We are here to discuss the future relationship between humanity and the Federation. Councillor Vorth shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His 3 eyes blinked rapidly. President Davis, we appreciate your willingness to negotiate. The Federation is prepared to offer improved conditions for human workers returning to Federation space. Helen smiled sadly. Councillor Vorth, I think you misunderstand. We are not here to discuss returning as workers. We are here to discuss partnership between equals. The chamber erupted in whispers and murmurs. Several councillors looked shocked. A Zephyrian representative stood up. The Federation has existed for over 1,000 years. We cannot simply change our entire system for one species. Then you will continue to watch your civilization fall apart, Jake said quietly. His words carried across the silent chamber. We have been watching your news feeds. The mining stations are still exploding. The crystalline people are still dying. The war between the Zephyrians and Arcturans is spreading to new systems every day. Dr. Kevin Walsh, joining by hologram from New Geneva, appeared beside Helen. Last week, we received requests for help from 17 different species. Not from the Federation government, but directly from the people who are suffering. What kind of requests? Asked Nissa Curl, the Drakmari intelligence officer who had become one of the few alien voices supporting change. Medical assistance for the crystalline plague, Kevin replied. Engineering support for the failing mining operations. Diplomatic. Mediation for the Zephyrian-Arcturan conflict. Food shipments for the agricultural colonies that can't feed themselves. Helen activated a holographic display. These are the territories that have already signed partnership agreements with humanity. Not as subjects or workers, but as allies. The display showed a map of the galaxy. Green areas marked human territories. Blue areas marked traditional Federation space. But there were also purple areas scattered throughout the map representing species that had chosen to ally with humanity instead of staying with the Federation. The Tillan Republic signed a trade agreement with us last month, Helen continued. The Rillan Collective joined our medical research program. Even some systems within Federation space have secretly asked for our help. Councillor Vorth's face turned darker blue. This is impossible. You cannot simply steal Federation members. We are not stealing anyone, Helen replied calmly. We are offering what the Federation has never offered, true partnership, equal representation, shared decision-making, mutual respect. A crystalline representative spoke, his rock-like voice echoing through the chamber. What exactly are you proposing? Jake stepped forward. Full membership for human territories in the Federation. Voting rights proportional to our population and contribution. Equal representation in all major decisions. And most importantly, a new approach to how all species are treated within the Federation. What kind of new approach? Asked a Drakmari. Councillor Helen smiled. No more second-class species. No more workers without voices. Every member species gets equal treatment, equal opportunities, and equal respect. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Vorth spoke. And if we refuse these terms? Then we continue as we are? Helen said simply. We maintain our independent territories. We honor our agreements with our new allies. We help those who ask for our assistance. The Federation can choose its own path. The implications were clear. Humanity was not begging to return. They were offering to help, but only as equals. If the Federation refused, humanity would continue to build its own civilization, potentially becoming a rival power. Dr. Thane, the crystalline medical officer, stood slowly. My people are dying. We need the human medicine. What will it take? To get that help? Kevin's hologram turned toward him. We are already prepared to help. Our medical ships are ready to depart as soon as the Federation agrees to the partnership terms. We can have treatment centers operational within days. And the mining operations? Asked a nervous-looking Valkyrian. Our engineering teams are standing by, Jake replied. We can restart the failed stations with new safety systems that will prevent future disasters. But we need assurance that human engineers will be treated as partners, not just workers. Zephyrian war leader spoke for the first time. What about the war with the Arcturans? Can you really stop it? Helen nodded to another holographic figure that appeared. It was Ben Rodriguez, the former Federation diplomat who had kept peace between the two species for years. General Kekstar, Ben said, addressing the Zephyrian by name. You know me. You know I understand your people's honor code. I also understand the Arcturan concerns about fair trade. This war started because both sides felt unheard. I can mediate a solution, but only if both sides agree to treat human mediators as neutral partners, not Federation servants. The war leader was quiet for a moment. If you can guarantee Arcturine respect for our territorial claims in the Vega system, we will consider ceasefire. An Arcturian representative who had been silent until now spoke up. And if you can guarantee Zephyrian compliance with established trade protocols, we will also consider peace. Ben smiled. Those are exactly the kind of issues that can be resolved through proper mediation. But it requires trust, and trust requires equality. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued against the changes. Others pointed out that their current situation was unsustainable. Slowly, the reality became clear. The Federation needed humanity more than humanity needed the Federation. Finally, Counselor Vorth called for a vote. All in favor of accepting the human partnership proposal? The vote was close, but it passed. The Federation would restructure itself to treat all member species as equals. Humanity would return not as workers, but as partners. Within days, human medical ships arrived at crystalline worlds. The plague treatments began immediately, and the death rate dropped to almost zero. Human engineers restarted the mining operations with new safety systems that prevented accidents. Most importantly, Ben Rodriguez sat down with Zephyrian and Arcturan leaders and negotiated a comprehensive peace treaty. 6 months later, Sandra Hayes stood on the observation deck of the new Harmony station. She was watching human and alien engineers working side by side, building something that neither could have created alone. It's amazing how much we can accomplish when we work together, she told her Drakmari colleague. Yes, her friend replied. But it took humanity leaving for us to realize what we had lost, Sandra nodded. Sometimes you have to lose something to understand its value. The Federation is stronger now because it learned to value all its members. The human exodus had become a turning point in galactic history. The Federation learned that true strength came not from having useful servants, but from having equal partners, and humanity learned that sometimes the best way to be heard is to walk away and wait for others to realize. They need to listen. The galaxy would never again take any species for granted.